I'm Dawn Hill, host of Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast where we explore what it means to live an aligned and wholehearted life. I am a professional counselor with over 25 years of experience and a deep love for meaningful conversation. I bring you honest reflections, soulful questions, and meaningful tools for managing life. Whether you're seeking clarity, connection, or simply a space to breathe, this podcast is here for you. Tune in weekly and join me on the journey.
Welcome to Heart, Mind, and Purpose, the podcast where we explore how our inner lives shape the way we love, connect, and grow. Hi, this is Paul Gramercy, producer of today's episode, where Dawn invites you to slow down and rediscover something many of us have quietly lost touch with: joy. Not the kind tied to circumstances, but the kind rooted in meaning, connection, and even faith. If life has felt heavy or overwhelming lately, this conversation will gently guide you back to the small moments that restore the heart and steady the soul. This episode is called Rediscovering Joy, the Power of Small Moments. Now here's your host, Dawn Hill.
Welcome back to Heart, Mind, and Purpose. Today we're stepping into something that I think so many people are quietly carrying, even if they don't always have the words for it. Life can be full, can be busy, demanding, and overwhelming. And somewhere along the way, joy can start to feel distant, not gone, but quieter, harder to access. And maybe you've even found yourself wondering, why don't I feel joy, even when life is okay? So today we're going to gently explore that, what joy really is, why it matters so deeply for our emotional and spiritual well-being, why we lose touch with it, and how to begin to rediscover it again. Not in big dramatic ways, but in small, meaningful, everyday moments. As we walk through this together, I want you to gently hold this perspective. Joy is not just psychological. It's not just emotional. There's also something deeply spiritual about joy. Let's begin here. Joy is not a luxury, it's a necessity. We often treat joy like something we'll get to later, after everything else is done. But joy isn't the reward for our finishing line. It's part of what sustains us through it. Research shows that joy strengthens resilience, supports emotional regulation, and even impacts our physical health. But Scripture has been pointing this truth out long before research ever did. In Nehemiah 8:10, we are reminded, "The joy of the Lord is your strength," not your circumstances, not your productivity. Joy. That tells us something important, that joy just isn't a feeling that comes and goes. It's a source of strength we can live from. So now let's pause and talk about something that often goes and gets confused. Happiness and joy are not the same. Happiness is often tied to what is happening around us. It's more circumstantial. When things are going well, we feel happy, but joy runs deeper. Joy can exist even when life is hard. It is anchored in something more stable, more meaningful, and more eternal. You can be grieving and still feel joy in a memory. You can be struggling and still experience moments of peace. That's because joy is not dependent on everything being okay. It's connected to presence, meaning, and connection, both with others and with God. So if joy is this powerful, why do we lose touch with it? There are a few reasons. First, we're overwhelmed. Burnout is everywhere right now, and burnout isn't just about being tired. It's about being depleted, disconnected, or running on empty. And often what's missing isn't just rest, it's joy. Secondly, our brains are wired for survival. We naturally focus on what's wrong, what's stressful, and what's uncertain. This negativity bias once kept us alive, but now it often keeps us from noticing what's good. And thirdly, sometimes we've unknowingly shifted our focus away from the giver of joy and onto the pressures of life. In John 15:11, Jesus said, "I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." And that's a very different kind of joy. Not partial, not fragile, complete. There's a quote I love by John Kabat-Zinn, and it says, "The little things, the little moments, they aren't little." And this has become deeply personal for me because somewhere along the way, I began to realize that the moments that stay with us are rarely the dramatic ones. They're usually the small ones. A child laughing in the back seat, a handwritten note, hearing a favorite song unexpectedly, someone reaching for your hand when you didn't even realize you needed comfort, watching the sky change colors at sunset. Years ago, I started practicing something simple at the end of the day. I would pause and ask myself, what was one good moment today? Not the biggest moment, not the most productive moment, just one meaningful moment. And over time, something shifted. I began noticing what I would otherwise have rushed past. I began paying attention differently. My mind slowly stopped scanning only for stress and problems and started making room for goodness too. Honestly, I noticed the squirrels who come to my back fence to drink from the little feeders that I leave water out there because it's so hot in Texas, or the hummingbirds that come to the feeder. And I would have rushed past those or not even had those things available for them. And so noticing beauty, paying attention differently, stop scanning only for stress, and making room for goodness too. Well, what does that do? And here's what it does. It trains both the heart and the mind to notice what is still good, still meaningful, still life-giving. Because often, joy is not missing. It's just unnoticed. Now, from a nervous system perspective, we often talk about triggers, which are signals of danger. But there's also something called glimmers. Glimmers are cues of safety, moments that bring calm, connection, and peace. And they're everywhere. The warmth of sunlight, a kind interaction, the smell of coffee, yum, and a quiet moment. And I think of these as more than just biological responses. I think of them as gentle reminders of God's presence, small ways He meets us in ordinary moments. James 1:17 says, "Every good and perfect gift comes from above." Sometimes those gifts don't come in big ways. Sometimes they come as glimmers. So where do we actually find joy? It's not in more stuff, and it's not in constant striving, but in simplicity, presence, connection, and meaning. Joy often shows up in the ordinary moments of our life. A quiet moment, a shared laugh, time outside, a meaningful conversation. And research tells us something else. Joy is deeply connected to relationships. And that makes sense because we were created for connection with others and with God. So let's gently name what blocks joy. Overcommitment, perfectionism, comparison. C.S. Lewis is famous for having a quote that says, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I really believe that. Also, distraction and exhaustion. And sometimes it's the belief that joy is something we have to earn. But joy is not earned, it is received. And sometimes it is reclaimed. So how do we begin again? Well, not perfectly, just intentionally. Here are a few gentle ways to practice and rediscover joy. 1, set an intention. Start your day with, "Lord, help me notice one good thing today." 2, slow down. Joy does not live in hurry. 3, keep a record. Write down special moments or glimmers. 4, create moments. Light a candle, play some music, sit in stillness. 5, practice gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to abundance. 6, reconnect with play. Joy and play are deeply connected and both matter. 7, stay connected to God. Sometimes joy is restored not by doing more, but by being still. Psalm 16:11 says, "In your presence there is fullness of joy." One of the most powerful truths about joy is that it doesn't just impact the moment. It stays with you, it strengthens you, and it carries you. Joy becomes something you can draw from, especially in hard seasons. Even in grief, joy can exist. Even in struggles, joy can be found. Not because everything is okay, but because you are not alone. So let me leave this with you. Joy is not far away. It is not reserved for perfect seasons. It is already woven into your life in the small, quiet, meaningful ways. You don't have to chase it. You just have to notice it. So today, let this be your invitation. Go out and find one moment, one glimmer, or one reminder that joy is still here. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it. And as always, until next time, may you be kind to your heart, clear in your mind, and grounded in your purpose. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Heart, Mind, and Purpose. As you go through your week, maybe take a moment each day to pause and look for one small glimpse of joy. Remember that joy isn't gone, it's just waiting to be noticed again. If you found this conversation helpful, we'd love for you to share it with someone who could use some encouragement. You can also find resources, listener handouts, and more at dawnmariehill.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode as we keep exploring how the heart, the mind, and our sense of purpose all work together for life well lived. If you have questions or comments, please contact Dawn at heartmindandpurpose.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.